All right, so let's stay with immigration issues. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi says the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has committed to calling a high-level tripartite meeting between the South African government and ambassadors to resolve the issue of foreign nationals in the country.
Motsoaledi says he supports President Cyril Ramaphosa's condemnation of the activities of Operation Dudula, whose members target migrant employees and shop owners without valid papers. Ramaphosa said the group is a vigilante-like force and its actions cannot be supported. So this interview is important, especially in light of what is happening in Diepsloot tonight. We understand Operation Dudula is there, including the leader Nhlanhla Lux.
Now, speaking exclusively to SABC News, Dr. Motsoaledi said his department is tightening the screws to strengthen its operation. Of course, before we bring you that interview, we say goodbye.
Yes, see you same time, same place tomorrow, but we leave you in the capable hands of our foreign editor. Ciao.
Well, since that time, two things happened. Since after 2008, the period which I've reflected on. Since that time, NICOC, the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee, when they were doing their intelligence estimates, they realized that there is one of the problems is the problem at the borders. That since democracy, because we are no longer at war with our neighbors, there was peace, there was everything, there was less focus at the borders. And they realized that that was a problem and a weakness. And they recommended that a special border management authority be formed. But unfortunately, it took 10 years for Parliament to pass an act to institute border management authority. But I'm sure you are aware.
Why such a long time, Minister? Because the problem was going to escalate.
Yeah, precisely because among us South Africans, there's no general agreement on how to handle this situation, especially the borders. Some people believe if you handle it, it's xenophobia. Others believe, in other words, there's no clear agreement about South Africans. Each one is shouting at their own corner about how it must be done. That's why it took 10 years. And I agree with you. It's bad. It was bad just to pass a law to deal with borders and have to take 10 years debating it. So, but that's the first thing that happened. The second thing, which I've already announced to Parliament, I said we have to review 3 pieces of legislation. And I'm busy with that process. I'm about to take it out in the public. Number 1, the Citizenship Act of 1995. Number 2, the Refugee Act of 1998. And number 3, the Immigration Act of 2002. There are several weaknesses there which needs to be looked at for the simple reason that they were passed at a different era in the existence of the country and the world. Now we are in this contemporary era needs us to review those acts. And yes, I agree with you and concede that a lot of time was wasted. But that is that. We have looked into that and say we must do it. Because let me tell you, contrary to belief, there are 2 things I want to tell you. The head of United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, who visited South Africa in 2019, when I've just arrived in Home Affairs, commended the country for having the most progressive immigration laws in the world. I'm sure you remember that.
I know very well that South Africa's immigration laws are commended around the world because we integrate those
very
people
easily
who come from countries where they are experiencing challenges.
It's not only integration. We very easily allow anybody to come here. Unfortunately, Sophie, even thugs, scalams, who in their country are no longer wanted, they believe the country to go to South Africa. And how do I explain the issue?
Is the criminal cluster failing us on that one?
No, we are failing ourselves generally. I don't want to blame any particular. I'm talking about us as a country. But well, maybe about our immigration regime, yes. How do I explain to the country and the world the issue of Fulgens Kayishema? I don't know whether you have heard about him. Fulgens Kayishema is from Rwanda. He ran here to South Africa and lived as a refugee. And guess what? He's wanted by United Nations, a special prosecutor who prosecute genocide, acts around the world.
We are the signatories to the ICC convention. Why are we not handing them over? Anyone who's in the country illegally and wanted by the ICC.
Precisely my fact. In the first place, even before handing them over, how do we end up accepting such people as refugees? That's the point I'm trying to make to you. And guess what? On the 13th of December last year, when the Prosecutor General reported to the United Nations High Commissioner, not High Commissioner, excuse me, United Nations Security Council, he complained about us, that we are a haven of all the criminals around the world. They rush here and live as refugees. And for instance, you guys in the media, every time you find such people here, I know, they are vulnerable, poor asylum seekers and all that. Not everybody is a poor asylum seeker. Some are thugs who are destroying this country.
But what is the police doing, intelligence doing? This is supposed to be the responsibility of the police service. And the Minister of Police, your colleague, must be taken to task for not doing his job to uproot such individuals in the country.
Well, I'm not on a blame game. Sophie, I'm not going to point the finger at my Minister of Police, but fortunately, I had a very fruitful 3-hour meeting with him just this morning. And that's why I got a little bit late for your interview. I was sitting with him. He brought all the generals of police, all of them, including the new commissioner. We're discussing these very same issues, especially starting at the borders, how we're going to work together, because we were working in separate silos, and that's why this problem emerged. And of course, you mentioned the issue of intelligence. You are right. And unfortunately, as Home Affairs, they always fall on my shoulders. You remember when Bushiri escaped?
Yes.
Everybody was on me and hitting hard, even though he was under the care of other agencies, not necessarily a Home Affairs after he was given bail. But everybody who have got a tag of being foreign, whatever they do, they go on top of Home Affairs. Now, the issue for intelligence is not a secret. You know, the president has to choose Dr. Sidney Mufamadi to look into it. We are rebuilding it. They've chosen a new head of that. We have got hopes. There are already results. Some of us see them when we interact with her, Miss Majola, the new head. So we accept, it's not a secret, that we're very weak because of the wars that happened in the past. I'm sure you are aware of that. And so at the moment, we are working together. We've even formed a common structure. We are going to weed out all this. And that's why you saw what happened 2 weeks ago when we caught this Pakistani national who is busy destroying identities of people and even destroying and distorting the national population register. What I didn't tell people, that was even distorting the voters' roll because of what has happened. So that's destruction of the whole country. And guess, that man is here under the auspice of being a refugee, under the pretext of being a refugee, and is destroying the country. The other one was caught when he was just about to escape at Cape Town International Airport. So I agree that there was a time when we were set and relaxed. That time is over, Sophie. It's over.
These issues, you spoke about this big story. I watched on television. I was so shocked, Minister, that this happened in the offices of Home Affairs. What are you doing to clean up our systems as well?
We're doing a lot, Sophie. And I just want to remind you, in November, I took a trip to Lubombo border post in Mozambique to take part in the arrest of 6 Home Affairs officials who are working at the border, 1 police officer working at the border, and a Mozambican hawker who were also running a racket about passports, breaching our laws. They are in now. As I'm speaking to you now, there is a person who was part of this photo swap, who is a South African, is serving and working in Home Affairs. He's serving 8 years. Now this week, we're arresting 8 Home Affairs officials. And people were asking me whether if I start making noise, they won't run away. Where to? If they run away to another country, it's good riddance. Within 14 days, they will have lost their jobs. If they go underground, within 14 days of not coming to work, they will have lost their jobs. And the Home Affairs Department will be clean of these rascals. But we are arresting 8 of them. We are still investigating. And the good news, Sophie, you know, since the operation, the sting operation in Krugerstop, the number of people who are giving us information every day is overwhelming. And I'm happy with South Africans and tell them out there, I'm very proud of them. Because maybe they thought maybe we don't care or we're doing nothing. Every single day, my phone is full of messages. Go to this place. This is what's happening where. This is, you know, the counter-corruption unit have got their hands full with all this information from citizens. And I think that's the way we need to work with our citizens. They need to become active citizens to help us clean up the country.
How do we differentiate between these ones who don't have papers, who must be dealt with in terms of the South African laws and international laws, and the foreign nationals, particularly from the continent, who are here legally, who are now panicking?
So if you are here legally and you have got the requisite documents, you have got nothing to be fearful of. You shouldn't. And it's not about papers as people think. There are people with papers here. Some of them hold very high positions, as I told you, in our SOEs and all that. But these papers are fraudulent. They got them fraudulently. And they are sitting in big offices like me and you here, sitting on high chairs, you know, running the country when they are actually scalums, if I have put that way. The other time I was talking of a high-ranking official in AXA who was found to have defrauded our documents. When she was questioned and she realized that she was caught, you know what she said? She threatened that she's going to commit suicide and leave a suicide note and send it to all over the world, telling them how xenophobic South Africa is. Xenophobic for catching you, for defrauding our documents. So those who are innocent have got nothing to worry about. The ones who are making noise, they know what they've done. For instance, you see matches here by people sometimes who believe they are welcoming to everybody. Some of them own businesses in which illegal foreign nationals who are vulnerable are being exploited, very heavily exploited, and earning nothing. You saw what happened in Robertson. I'm sure you saw the war between Basotho national and Zimbabweans, where the story was that no, it is the labor brokers who are doing this. And the labor brokers came very openly. Within a short space of time, they said, no, the white farmers told us that when we recruit for them as labor brokers, we must recruit only Zimbabweans and nobody else. What was the reason? They were going to exploit them because they know that they are illegal. By the way, this one,
Minister of Labour, where is
before you come there, this one I saw it. I think it was 2002 when I was the MEC for Agriculture in Limpopo. Mr. Billy Masetla was the DG of Home Affairs.
I remember.
Yes, and Minister Member Disim Tlatlana was the Minister of Labour. They came to Limpopo, to Musina, and I went with them there. And the stories that people were telling us were chilling. They were saying the white farmers there hire illegal Zimbabweans in their farms and not South Africans. They hire them and they toil there. At the end of the month, when they are supposed to pay them, he just takes his van out, go to the nearest police station, find the commander there, police commissioner at the police station. No, they don't deport them. They just drive with a lot of vans to their farm. And when they see the vans coming, they run away. And then the farmer no longer have to pay salaries. They've disappeared. They just disappear because they know that they are there illegally. Isn't that an evil act? It's very evil. So these are the things that we are going to have to fight. And I'm emphasizing to you, people who are here illegally, who have stolen nothing, who have defrauded nothing, have got nothing to fear. But those who did, together with Home Affairs officials, so it doesn't matter. When you destroy this system, whether you are a foreign national or you are a local, a citizen, we're coming for you.
You have this situation where fellow Africans are being abused in our country, a country that fought for democracy.
That's bad, and it must come to an end. I've just said so. But it doesn't start with the Minister of Agriculture, as you said. It starts with the Minister of Labour. That's why you are aware that the President formed an interministerial committee, which fortunately is co-chaired by me and the Minister of Labour. We have already put these things on the table, we are discussing them, and we are putting mechanism. In that interministerial committee, the Minister of Agriculture, Agrarian Reform and Land Reform and Rural Development, Rural Development is sitting there, Metoko Didiza. We're discussing these issues with her about what we are going to do. And there, I've just told you this morning, I sat with the Minister of Police and his general. This was about the Border Management Authority, how it's going to work. The act, which was eventually passed, even though I said it took 10 years, the act names 9 ministers who must sit together to take care of those borders. And the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development is also sitting there. And we are discussing these issues every day. Very soon, you are going to see a completely new emerging out of the country on how we deal with these matters.
Is there synergy in cabinet, but also these 9 ministers?
The reason that we formed the Border Management Authority, the reason that NICOC realized it is because we had 7 different ministries and entities at the borders who were working separately, each one in their own silos. And that's where the weakness was. So integrating them under one authority, under one command structure, the Border Management Authority is going to solve a problem. Among the 9 ministers, which the act, the interministerial committees in South Africa are formed by the president. This is the only interministerial committee since democracy that is not chosen by the president, but the act itself, the act of parliament names the 9 ministers who must sit there. And we have already agreed that they'll sit 4 times a year or as required, sit 4 times a year statutorily, but as required. The Minister of Agriculture is also in there. Public Works is not, because the work that Public Works was doing at the borders is going to be taken over by the Border Management Authority. The Deputy Commissioner for Corporate Services is going to be taking over that work. And we are busy, by the way, with transfers of these functions under Section 97 of the Constitution of South Africa. Section 97 of the Constitution talks about mainly about 2 issues: the transfer of functions from one or the administration of an act of parliament from one ministry to the other, and the transfer of staff which were hired under one ministry to be transferred to the other. And so many of ministries are going to be transferring functions and human beings to the Border Management Authority, and that process is on.
What's your position with Operation Dudula?
Sophie, the person who is the ultimate in terms of policy and pronouncements is the president of the country. The president has already clearly pronounced about Operation Dudula. Now you are putting me in a difficult position to ask me about my individual position as a minister, whereas the boss of the country, the commander-in-chief, have spoken. Please go and follow about what the president has said. And I've got no option but to follow what the president has said, because he is the ultimate policy maker and spokesperson of the whole government.
But are you comfortable? Because
I'm comfortable with what the president said.
You are towing the line.
No, I'm not towing the line. I'm comfortable and I'm going along with what the president has said. It's not towing the line, but at any rate, I've already told you, he's the commander-in-chief. When he commands you, you must agree or you get out.
There are people who are scared now that those who have accumulated assets genuinely are going, or they stand to lose.
Everybody who's here is called a refugee or an asylum seeker, which is not true at all. And I'm happy that you recognize that. And I hope your colleagues also should or will recognize that. Now, why should I guarantee people of their assets? How are they going to lose assets in South Africa? Because this is a constitutional democracy. Have you ever seen or heard of anybody just losing assets like that in this country? It has never happened. I'm not sure why they're even asking the Minister of Home Affairs about that. If people acquired assets legally through various mechanisms, for instance, I don't give title deeds. I don't give licenses for anything. People buy property using the laws of the country. So I don't understand why I should guarantee anybody anything unless people know that they've acquired their assets illegally and using fraudulent means. Then they are thugs. They need to be dealt with. And I can't guarantee them of anything. So, but anybody who have acquired assets in a legal manner, why should they be afraid? Why do they want to be reassured by a Minister of Home Affairs? For what reason?
Minister, how are you addressing the challenges within Home Affairs offices where people are complaining that the issue of service delivery sometimes officials are found wanting? But to bill.
Let me start with South Africans. Because Home Affairs broadly, Sophie, has got two broad arms. One arm is civic. That's for me and you as South Africans, to get our identity and all appropriate documents. The other arm is immigration. That's where refugee, asylum seekers, migrants, or people who come here for visas, including even tourists, that's where they fall under immigration. So let's divide that. The first one is about the what you call civics. Yes, it's a nightmare. I spent sleepless nights about that because there are quite a number of things that need to be resolved that are very, very problematic for me, Sophie. I really spent sleepless nights. Number one, when you look at the police station or a clinic or a school, they were all built by the state. Because they are social services, they serve people, they are also dealing with civic matters. But when you come to Home Affairs, it's very different. We acquire offices through the Department of Public Works. We wait for somebody to put up a building and we say we want to hire it. Those buildings are not fit for purpose of what Home Affairs is all about. That's the first thing. So where we find people crowded, sitting in the sun, not having any space, that is the first thing that we are trying to correct. But the second thing, which in one budget speech I called it the original sin, is our IT systems, which we acquire from SETA. Oh, Sophie, no. Even if you try to do Batopele, I still remember in 2020 how embarrassed we became where we were doing this Batopele when COVID was starting to see that people are obeying COVID laws. We removed everybody here, starting with myself, Deputy Minister DG, went to various corners of the country to do that. Guess what? When you arrived, systems were down. For 3 hours, nothing was working because the IT systems were down. I fortunately was deployed to Pretoria here. And so it was easy to run to Centurion where SETA was. I was there with that office with engineers getting phone calls, irate public members, very angry. But the system was down. You saw what happens on Friday. Just one cable cut at SETA. The whole 412 Home Affairs officials could not work. We have to issue death certificate manually, right? Yeah, written death certificate. Yes, at this day and age. Even today, as I'm sitting here now, we are forced to extend working hours because of the amount of work. And the amount of work that people the services that people are looking for. So it is a nightmare, but we are doing several things with it. Number one, herself and SETA went to the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. We outlined the problem on both sides. I'm not an IT person, really. It's a difficult field for me. But I do sit and listen that now we've got the architect is wrong, switches are going to be made, etc. And the other one that falls outside Home Affairs is the concept of broadband. I'm sure you are aware that we don't have a broadband in South Africa.
Yes.
Which you are, yes. Now, you will sometimes go to a Home Affairs office, find a long queue, and you are irritated. You want the people to work very fast. You go to one of the desks and you watch. And you can see on the computer, it's saving one person in 20 minutes. And there's a queue of 100 people outside. But one person in 20 minutes is very slow. Yes, it's very slow. So I was very excited when the cabinet recently passed a plan by the Minister of Communications and New Technologies, that which is called South Africa Connect, where they are going to connect all hospitals, police stations, SASA offices, and Home Affairs. And I begged her, I said, please, not that I undermine my colleagues, start with Home Affairs, because you know what, so when the systems are down, you can teach kids. And I'm not trying to undermine the fact that education needs a broadband. You can still treat patients. But in Home Affairs, when systems are down, poof, finished. You just sit there and wait because you have got to use the computer. So it's a big nightmare for me personally because people insult us. Even members of parliament.
It affects the intention to grow the economy because if you have this type of connectivity, how do you hope to flourish?
It does. And I was asking a question because I know recently you have heard the SARS commissioner smiling from corner to corner with his mouth, and we're smiling with him about the achievement of SARS. They've just reached 1.3 trillion rand in tax collection. And why am I telling you this story? Because when CETA Act was enacted, whereby all government departments will have to acquire their IT through CETA, SARS was exempted. It's free. They acquire them everywhere. I asked the same question that you asked, by the way, when I realized it. I asked the same question. That didn't we realize that Home Affairs is actually carrying the economy of this country? You can't do any transaction in a bank without ID. You can't apply for any business. You can't open a factory. You can't fly overseas on business matters. You all depend on Home Affairs. So yes, you are right. And that's why we are working around the clock to correct this situation. It frustrates me because I'm an IT person. Sometimes I sit for the whole day with these experts.